Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. The under-siege Dillian Whyte, the heavyweight who allegedly has tested positive for an anabolic steroid, has released a statement breaking his silence on the situation, but failing to clear up anything to any real extent. So Dillian Whyte has not refuted that there was a failed test, but he has said in a statement on his social media, "I'm so disappointed with the rubbish that has been said about me over the last few days. I have lawyers dealing with it, and I have been told that I can't talk about it for good legal reasons. I was cleared to fight, and I won that fight fair and square. Thanks for the support." Dillian Whyte's statement. So it was a much anticipated statement, but really it's delivered little. He has not denied that there was a failed test. He has not really revealed anything, but given that there are some legalities at play here, we heard from Eddie Hearn that there was some legal cases in relation to some of the information that has been out there. Really, we're still in the dark over some of what's happened or allegedly happened, because no one has actually come out and said, yes, there was a failed test, but no one has denied it either. And that in itself is actually quite telling. So the allegation is that there was a failed test, the results of which came to light on July 17. There was then a hearing which Eddie Hearn has confirmed ahead of the fight with Oscar Rivas. Rivas was not told about the test. He was in the dark just like everybody else. Dillian Whyte fronted the UCAD panel because this was a UCAD test, a failed test. And some people have been saying that because Whyte had been on UCAD and VADA because he passed VADA testing, that somehow means that he was cleared to fight. They are two different testing organisations. UCAD covers sport in the UK. He was under the obligations for UCAD. He paid for extra VADA testing. Remember, this is random testing. They're not coming at the same time on the same day. It is random for a reason. So this is a situation where we're probably at a bit of an impasse at the moment, because nothing has been cleared up, nothing has really been said in public regarding the results of this alleged failed test. So really we're in the dark here. There is a B sample. What is the status with that? We do not know. It probably has been tested, the results of which we may not know for some considerable time, because remember, when these cases do happen, often there is a long and protracted process involving hearings, evidence. The parties involved get to have the right of reply to different evidence that is submitted. They will make submissions over a period of time. There will be a lot of back and forth here until we get to something. So this thing, it's not over. If there is a failed test, which we're led to believe there was, otherwise that story would have been retracted by Boxing Scene, then we have to go through this whole process now by the look of it. And this is not us, this is Dillian Whyte, this is UCAD, and sometimes this can take a year or more. Remember, the case with Tyson Fury took a couple of years. Even the one with Eric Molina, where he admitted taking vitamin B12 without actually checking what was in the supplement. That took the best part of a year, 18 months before that was fully resolved. So this could be a case where Dillian Whyte has this cloud hanging over him for some considerable time. He may be fighting in the interim, and we will have no resolution about this current case. But this is the thing, we have so few facts now, but there is, in UCAD's mind, and this is what happens with other cases similar to this, a right to privacy for those involved, that at the point that these instances happen, that there is a process that must be run through, and they will not deem anyone to be guilty before the full process is adhered to. So we could be left in the dark for some considerable time. But there are some other things circling around the story that I wanted to get to. The first thing, you may have actually seen this clip, which was the post-fight press conference immediately prior to it starting. Obviously, reporters setting up, cameras on Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte. If you haven't seen this, go check it out. It's everywhere on Twitter and social media. Dillian Whyte does sort of have a conversation with Eddie Hearn. Not all of it is easy to pick up, but I'll get to a transcript in a moment. But Dillian Whyte talks about, the last couple of days that he hadn't slept ahead of the fight. And remember, this is an instance that even though this was not broadcast, for example, reporters, journalists, that sort of stuff, they set up, you're always taught or figures that the mic is always live. So this was picked up, and the contents of the conversation have now been aired publicly. So Whyte does say, and here's the transcript here, that he hasn't slept for a couple of days. And further down, and so you can go find the transcript online as well, or just, pause this and read it. But he does say that he has been stitched up. He passed 2 tests in 2 days, and then 1 in a million. So that in itself, some people will look at that and be raising an eyebrow. But obviously there was something that happened in Fight Week. We're being told there was a hearing, that Dillian Whyte had to answer for something, that he had to go in front of a UKAD independent panel and answer some questions. Ultimately, he was allowed to continue to fight on July the 20th with Oscar Rivas. So some people are still saying that there was no incident, that all of this is BS, that there was no case to answer for. But that sort of, neglects the fact that he was called to a hearing over something. So there was something that happened. So for people who are just, denying anything went on, I think that is naive at this point, because Hearn has described it as an incident, but no one has said there was a failed test, but no one has denied that either. And just going to also on social media, so Michael Benson, a couple of things. He raised a point here. Say Whyte fought Rivas in Colombia. Whyte lost by unanimous decision. Then it was reported Rivas tested positive for steroid metabolites pre-fight. He was then cleared at a secret Colombian anti-doping hearing, but Team Rivas didn't tell Whyte. What would the reaction be? And I think if you flip it around like that, some of what's gone on here doesn't exactly look transparent, and it does raise the question about how all this got out anyway. And it also raises the question about the processes that are in place, because Frank Warren, and he's quoted here, but I'll get to his article, which he's on his website, frankwarren.com. He says, during Fight Week, Dillian Whyte was informed of an adverse finding in a recent anti-doping test, allegedly, and nearly all concerned were made aware of this also. So Dillian knew, his promoter Eddie Hearn has admitted he knew, and the British Boxing Board of Control and UKAD were obviously in the picture, as UKAD are exclusively appointed by the board to handle all anti-doping matters under the World Anti-Doping Agency WADA protocol. Normally, under these circumstances, a boxer is immediately suspended and is given 7 days to respond. Of the 2 samples taken, A and B, the B sample is retained to be tested at the request of the boxer at a later date if he refutes the findings in the A sample. In the meantime, press conferences continued as if nothing had happened, and they continued to sell the fight against Oscar Rivas to be broadcast on pay-per-view. Strangely, most athletes wait months to have a hearing, but on this occasion a hearing took place on the Saturday morning, which was kept secret for reasons we do not know. But the one person this should not have been kept from is Oscar Rivas. Everybody concerned had a duty of care to inform him of the situation. He was the one getting into the ring with someone who, nobody disputes at this moment, had tested positive for a PED. Ultimately, his life was on the line. Questions need to be asked, but neither he or his team were told. He had been told they could have made a decision over whether Rivas wanted to or should not fight. If they required financial compensation, what were the implications if they withdrew from the fight? And most importantly, were the insurance policies in place and how were they affected? Were the insurance company informed? Would they cover a fighter who was taking PEDs or a fighter suffering injury or worse as a result? Apparently the WBC, who had the interim title on the line, knew nothing about it, so why weren't they informed, as they go to great lengths to promote their own clean boxing program and probably would have pulled the sanction? Frank Warren continues, I think it's outrageous that a fighter is allowed to step into the ring to take on someone with a doping cloud hanging over their head and be totally unaware of what is going on. People might say I would say all this being a rival promoter, but I've been in the sport a long time, and this isn't the first occasion where Matchroom have been guilty or been accused of dubious practice that could potentially put the safety of boxers at risk. What we have got now is an about turn from Hearn, in contrast to his reaction when Billy Joe Saunders was deemed to failed a VADA test for using a nasal decongestant while out of competition, which is permitted by UKAD. In the eyes of UKAD and BBOC, Bill was an innocent party and had not broken any rule or violated the WADA code, but Hearn, when it suited him and his agenda, vocally supported the stance of the voluntary organisation insisted everybody should know about it, resulting in Bill having to vacate his world title. Now we have a cloak of secrecy thrown over the whole issue. Furthermore, what have the VADA tests come back with this time, and why is it all being conducted in secret? And Frank Warren goes on here, but I won't get into that. But yeah, certainly there will be some people saying that Frank Warren is trying to sort of make for his own gain here out of the situation. But he raises some valid points that people have been raising about the secrecy of this whole thing. And certainly Eddie Hearn has been vocal before, quick to jump on adverse findings and report them publicly. I mean, the Miller situation was one, and Warren references obviously Billy Joe Saunders, but in this case, not much has been said, and there seems to be more going on here because there was a hearing that was held. So we do not really know what's going on. Dillian Whyte has not been able to shed any light on the situation. Hearn had said, wait for Whyte's statement. He'll be able to really clear some of this up. And we really have no resolution. We really don't know what's going on at all. And the WBC didn't know what was going on. They released a statement saying, at the time of the publication of this release, the WBC has not received any notification from anyone about a positive anti-doping test allegedly yielded by Dillian Whyte in connection with the last Saturday fight with Oscar Rivas for the WBC Interim Heavyweight Championship. The WBC has requested that the BBB of C, as the local governing entity that oversaw that fight, formally provide any information to the WBC. The fighter's promoters contracted the Voluntary Anti-Doping Agents Association, VADA, to perform the pre-fight and after-fight anti-doping tests on both fighters. The WBC is not aware that any of the test results that VADA has received up to now yielded any adverse findings. The WBC created the Clean Boxing program, which is administered by VADA, which is a top priority of our organisation. The WBC will not make any comments about the situation at hand until it receives the proper formal communication from the BBB of C. That's the WBC statement. Obviously, they don't know what's going on here, but it was not a VADA test that was failed. It allegedly was a UCAD test. So the two are different. So if UCAD is testing, it's not going to report to the WBC. It would report to the British Boxing Board of Control, which, you know, it is contracted to in terms of its status of doing drug testing for boxing for the British Boxing Board of Control. And UCAD more broadly does drug testing for various sports within the UK. So this situation, no resolution seems at hand, and this could end up dragging on for some considerable time, but we're left with massive information gaps. And at this point, perhaps because of legal ramifications or who knows what, we are not going to get any further information at the moment, it appears. What do you make of it all? What did you make of Dillian Whyte's statement? He didn't really reveal much. He says thanks for the support, and he says he won that fight fair and square, that he was cleared to fight. Is that good enough what he is saying? Is it good enough the information that we have received in general more broadly about this case? And had the shoe been on the other foot, how would people feel about this fight and the result and a test if Oscar Rivas had failed in Colombia and cleared it on a secret panel? When you do think about it like that, it is, does give you pause for thought. Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.